Hello, everybody. Welcome to Clash of the Correspondents. My name's James, and today I'm joined by two of our correspondents ahead of a big game on Saturday night football and ahead of a particularly big fixture swing for both clubs. I'm joined by Ricky Saunders at Ricky Saunders77 on Twitter, our Tottenham correspondent. How are you, Ricky?
Excellent. Thank you, James. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you, mate. We're joined by Jonny Pringle at FPL Pringle on Twitter, our Manchester City correspondent. How are you, Jonny?
Yeah, good. Thanks, James.
Ricky, it's not that long ago since we last spoke. We spoke just before we played Burnley, and we looked like the best attacking team in the country, apparently. And then, according to everyone else except me and you, I think. And since then, we have laboured to, let's be honest, 3 bad performances, but 3 wins against Burnley, Brighton and West Brom. What's your mood like now on Spurs?
I'm still happy that we're playing bad and getting results, but then I look at the teams we've played and we can't play like that against anybody probably other than those 3 teams and still get wins. So I'm a little bit worried. Something that was working at the start of the season isn't working now, and yeah, we need to maybe change things up a little bit.
What do you think's changed then?
This is going to be unpopular, mate, if I'm being honest. I think Bale was affected the way we play a little bit and not for the better. At the moment, we're not, because we've had to carry him through his struggles to get fit, we seem to be labouring a little bit up front and maybe lacking a little bit of ideas.
So Gareth Bale's only played, the West Brom game in terms of the league game starting. Obviously came on at Brighton, didn't participate at Burnley at all. So why do you think that's impacted then? Do you think that's like a pressure on people like Lucas Moura to perform better, or?
Yeah, I mean, Bale's now there and no, automatically he's going to be a pick. Well, obviously, when he's coming off the bench at the moment, when he's fit, he's in. There's no doubt about it. So people like Moira, Bergwijn's not got much of a look in. Even Lamela, to a certain extent, the pressure's now very much on them to try and up their game. Well, they're not going to get game time other than from a bench or maybe in a Carabao Cup.
Do you think he'll start on Saturday, Bale days?
Yes, I do.
That's my reaction as well. It's a very hesitant yes. And I think I understand what you're saying, because something psychologically obviously happened in the West Ham game where he came on, and we're not saying that Tottenham didn't win the game specifically because he came on, but I think he was brought onto a situation where he clearly wasn't fit yet, but we're 3-0 up. This should be fine.
Yeah.
And then obviously has to end up doing a lot of backtracking, which he wasn't ready for. And that's why, also because of, say, Burnley with Taylor and McNeil, we mentioned this at the time about that threat when we previewed that game and potentially Bale not playing that game. And he's been slowly integrated in. He's obviously now getting up to fitness. Every time he's played, he's looked fitter. He's obviously, it's worth saying, and we should say this now, we're recording prior to the Wednesday night internationals. So if he comes through unscathed, he's starting again for Wales this evening. Surely he's up to speed where we go, right, he's going to play now, because he's too good to be left out, really, isn't he?
On his day, he's the best player in our side. The things that he can do with a ball, we've got nobody else that can do that. So, yeah, he's got to play. If he's fit, he's got to play. There's no 2 ways about it.
Do you think Bale is detrimental to Son?
Yes.
Go on, elaborate.
I don't really know how to explain it, in all honesty. Just the ball getting out to Bale. I think a lot of people are looking for Bale because he's Gareth Bale, maybe more now than they're looking or than they were looking for Son. So maybe he's kind of sharing the passes. Bale isn't as integrated into the team. Like the understanding that Son's got with virtually every person on the pitch is almost telepathic, but he's not getting as many balls put through to him. He's not got the same partners around him. We're chopping and changing. Some weeks it's Lamela, some weeks it's Moura. So I think he's suffering from not being settled with the players around him.
I think one thing it's really important to mention is people have often been critical of, say, Mora's performances, particularly in terms of his attacking threat. But he offers a very good defensive shield that allows, obviously, Heung-min Son to make those brilliant inside runs. There is an assumption, I think, that, right, Bale will play, so Bale and Son will both make those runs and Kane will drop in. But it's interesting now the fixtures are flipping. Are Tottenham going to be brave enough to play that way, particularly coming up a side like Manchester City, who you and I know, Ricky, are going to dominate the ball and dominate the game? We'll come back to that, Ricky. Jonny, how are you feeling about City's start? It feels on the outside a little bit underwhelming, particularly obviously with the league position at the moment.
Yeah, it has been. I think it's fair to say we haven't been firing on all cylinders like we have been in previous years, but the fixtures have been tough. I think a positive has been the defence does look significantly better now with the addition of Diaz. But the attack is looking weaker. I think we've all seen the stats about it. XG is down, chance creation's down, shots in the box is down. And I don't think you can sort of put your finger on why. So a little bit worrying, but hopefully with a good fixture run next, we might see that attack become a bit more potent.
I mean, my take on that is just the fact that you'd obviously played a number of games without Jesus or Aguero, or at least a fully fit Jesus or Aguero. And now at least Jesus presumably is up to speed in terms of fitness. Is that a big impact in terms of bringing the other midfielders into play?
Yeah, I think so. I think, to be fair, we've seen in the past when Jesus and Aguero have been out, when you have to sort of put someone up front that doesn't play up front, it does affect the team. I think you are right. Just the amount of shots in the box that both Jesus and Aguero get away as well does help. So yeah, hopefully that will make a difference with them both being back.
Do you feel like in the Liverpool game at the end, the two teams played out a draw in the end? Because the first half was unbelievable in terms of, from a neutral, to watch it. But the last 20 minutes felt like both teams were intent not to lose the game. And I spoke in the build-up about it being particularly important for you not to lose it.
Yeah, it did feel like that way. I think it was slightly more frustrating for City fans because, well, obviously we're the home team. I felt that we were, like you said, we were playing sort of within ourselves, but you could say that about Liverpool as well. I think it was maybe because we just had Foden on the bench. He was ready to come on at one point, but didn't. You felt like Pep was purposely, like you say, just trying to protect that lead. I don't think it's as detrimental as to our title bid that Gary Neville was going on about. He was talking about City having to win this game, but 2 points behind them at this stage is fine. I'm not too bothered. I think a lot of City fans were angry that we didn't go for the win, but I think that's more just to try and beat Liverpool rather than trying to make up that gap. I think the gap is fine for now.
So are you 5 behind Liverpool with a game in hand?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I meant. I mean, that gap would have opened up if you'd lost, right? Suddenly you're looking at 8 with a game in hand. And then we get into that same position we spoke about so much last year where it felt like, oh gosh, you're behind. You must be infused by, a little bit reluctantly, but obviously the injury situation at Liverpool and obviously the stability of them. You spoke about the importance of Diaz coming into your team. Defensively, you obviously now look suddenly a lot more stable than they do.
Yeah. They've almost had the exact same sort of problem, haven't they? It was us last season with Laporte, just the main man at the back being taken out. Van Dijk being taken out for them is obviously a huge shame for them. They've obviously been hit even harder with Gomez not there and now Trent being injured. So yeah, they are probably going to have to face the same problems, or if not worse, than City. So it does give us a bit of hope. Obviously, you don't want to be given hope in that way. But yeah, it's a tough situation for them and it probably will benefit us.
In your opinion, I think it's clear to everybody Laporte and Diaz are the first choice too now. Do you feel like that's Manchester City safe? We know there's always a chance for you in terms of rotation, but does that feel absolutely safe? Because Nathan Ake's got an injury now as well, isn't he? Hamstring injury for Holland, I believe. Does that centre-back pairing, do you see them playing almost exclusively the majority of Premier League games now?
Yeah, I talked about in pre-season how we needed to get Laporte just a partner that would just play every week. And it does feel like we found that in Diaz. And it feels like we found a proper partnership there. Diaz seems a really good fit. I've been really impressed with him so far. Was a little bit underwhelmed when we signed him. But you are right. I think them two will be the first names on the team sheet after Ederson now.
So you know what the follow-up question is, don't you? Cancelo. Yeah. It's all the rage in the Twitter community. No one outside the Twitter community, just the Twitter community. Cancelo or Diaz, mate? If you had a preference, where would your money be going?
So it is the classic, and I know everyone won't want to say this, but it is the classic sort of ceiling versus safety, isn't it? Cancelo has the higher ceiling, but is more prone to rotation. But I was looking up, I've got flash goals up now with the games that Cancelo has played, and people will probably like what I'm going to say. So the last 3 games, or the last 4 games of last season, Watford, Norwich, Madrid and Lyon, he played 90 minutes. Then he was injured for the first 5 games of this season, so to be fair, didn't play. And then every league game he's played this season, or every league game since then, he's played 90 minutes. So every league game that he's been available since 21st of July here, he's played 90 minutes.
Zinchenko left back Saturday then, I presume.
But then that's the thing. That's what people will like to hear me say. But obviously during that, Mendy and Zinchenko have been in and out of the team. And
Yes.
I thought Zinchenko actually played quite well against Marseille when he played, and actually gave us a bit more balance because obviously Cancelo is right-footed. I think Cancelo has done well. I think he's looked better and more consistent there than Mendy and Zinchenko have for a couple of years now. I don't think he's perfect. I think he's a little bit rash. Sometimes can be a little bit brain dead, but technically is very good going forward. Does look threatening. But yeah, Diaz does just look safe at centre back. I was hoping to go Diaz myself, and he sort of ruined what I was about to say last night. But he hasn't sort of looked that much of a goal threat for City, but he popped up with 2 for Portugal this week. He popped up once in the box against West Ham, but apart from that, hasn't really looked threatening. He does go forward for corners. So I think it is just take your fancy.
He's a big lad, isn't he? And look, the guys for you that go forward at set pieces are going to get on the end of a few, because you're going to have a few, and obviously, particularly the wide free kick ones from De Bruyne. I mean, if the delivery's right, I feel like Diaz had a goal disallowed, maybe not the Leicester game. No, the Leicester game was the last one before he joined. He made his debut at Leeds, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I think you had definitely one disallowed for someone in that Leicester game. But if the delivery is good enough, you don't even need to be the biggest. You'll get on the end of it anyway.
Ake scored against Leicester, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
One interesting thing on Cancelo, and you kind of mentioned it there with Zinchenko. When you drew at West Ham, he took off Walker and moved Cancelo to right back and brought Zinchenko on to play on the left late in the game. And Guardiola spoke afterwards about the importance of having a left footer out there. Why was that specifically that case against West Ham, do you think? Was there something in terms of the fact of them setting up with a flat 5? They were holding on to a lead. They got quite deep.
Yeah, I think it was because we were chasing, because West Ham were sitting really deep. We needed a bit of width. And we basically shoved Sterling up front. I'm not sure if Torres had come on at that point. But yeah, he needed width and it needed to come from the fullbacks. So I think he brought Zinchenko on just to get him and Cancelo hugging opposite touchlines. I think it's been clear so far, but I don't think he's too bothered about Cancelo being a right-footed left-back, because obviously he started in lots of games. But when it does become an issue, you can see maybe Zinchenko or Mendy starting.
What's Cancelo's role? You spoke a lot, and we spoke about this, particularly about Walker. Walker can be a flyer and go on the outside. He can also kind of tuck in and play this almost holding midfield role. Does Cancelo fit between the two as well, or is he just an out-and-out left-back that goes forward?
Yeah, he hasn't really come inside much. He is just a sort of out-and-out left-back that just goes, hugs a touchline, up and down. Yeah, you are right in that Walker sort of comes inside and makes a free, and Cancelo does get forward. I think that's why he's so attractive to everyone, because he is basically playing like a left wing back or left winger at times when Sterling goes inside.
You might have our new left back, Ricky.
Regulion.
Reggie.
I think he's good. He's really good. He's probably still got a bit to learn defensively, but he is rapid.
He is fast.
God, he's quick. I think he's still got a little bit to learn. He's a little bit naive, maybe defensively, but yeah, he's gonna get. I think a few attacking returns this season. He puts in a nice ball, just goes past players like they're not there. And one thing he is actually really good at, to be fair to him, he will bust a gut to get back into position. He's not going to get caught out of position too often.
He dives in though. That's the main criticism I'd have in what I've seen so far.
He does.
If he comes up against a clever player like Amares, he'll just shift him and feint him and he'll be gone.
Yeah, so far when he has dived in, he's actually timed his tackles really, really well. But yeah, he hasn't played against a very intelligent player yet that can make him or draw the foul and make him cock up a little bit.
Right back, we've got to deal with Serge Aurier.
This is where it gets interesting for this week.
He's obviously out with COVID.
Yeah, I've got. I mean, you said about Reggie. I've got a sneaky that we might even play Ben Davies this week, purely because if Aurier's in the side, we want him as far away from the penalty box as possible. Otherwise, he's going to be conceding penalties. So we might just go Ben Davies. So we've still got a complement of defenders at the back, and that's just a guess. I'm not.
It's interesting that because before we played Burnley, you and I both said that we thought Davis would play at Burnley. I'm not quite in the agreement with you this time because I think pace is probably particularly important against City. And I think he'll just have to play with the handbrake on a little bit. So I would expect him to play. But I guess off that, Ricky, you'd say for FPL managers, there will be some on Reguilon. If they haven't got the injury issues, and you're blessed if you're in a position you haven't at the moment, is he someone you'd move on with City and this upcoming fixtures coming up? Or is it a case of, like you said, I think there'll be attacking returns?
I think there'll be attacking returns, but as we've said before, we don't buy defenders for the attacking returns. That's the bonus that you get with them. There's not going to be many clean sheets from our point of view over the next 5, 6, 7 games. So if you've got nothing else to do, then yeah, move him on. If you've got other fires to put out, it's perfectly good enough to be in there, and he is going to pop up with an assist or two maybe. But yeah, with clean sheet wise, I'm not looking at us getting any over the next few.
I mean, agree with that. I can't argue with that. Just on the fixtures generally, it's difficult to see many clean sheets. Moving forward, then, Ricky, for Harry and Sonny, who'll obviously be in a lot of teams at the moment. Where do you stand? Who's in your team? What's your plans? Or have you still got Dele Alli sitting there?
Dele went a long time ago, and I suspect he's going to be going from everybody's team in January when he's off on loan somewhere.
He can't be in anyone's team, surely, mate.
Well, do you know what? I saw that he had a price drop. I think last night or the night before. I wasn't aware there's that many people still had him for him to get a price drop. That actually surprised me an awful lot. If you've got him, get rid of him now. That's my advice for today.
It's worth saying, and I said this on the Tottenham Patreon podcast we did last week, that actually thinking the 3 games has just gone. Yeah, it's the first time it stood out. We could have done with him.
Yep.
It's, as we've repeated before, it's a case he doesn't move the ball quick enough in the 10 position is what restricts him, and he wouldn't play against City. He won't be in contention. But Harry and Sonny, what do you want to do, mate?
I've got Son. I don't have Harry. I want Harry, and I want to get rid of Son. Well, no, I don't want to get rid of Son. That's a lie. I will be moving Son on for now because there's players out there with much better fixtures. He is fixture proof to a certain degree, but obviously the chances he's going to get are going to be they're going to be coming against better players, and there's not going to be as many of the chances. But Harry, he can just do everything. He will score. He will get assists. He will score against anybody. So if you've got him, keep him. Sonny's a bit of a flip of a coin, but I'm moving him on.
The theory is, of course, with Sonny that playing against better teams, more space in behind. That's the flip theory. It's worth saying. I assume that Kyle Walker, if fit, will play for Manchester City, and he won't get much change out of getting in behind on that side if that's the matchup that he's faced with this particular weekend. But there's a lot of people who obviously think, look, he's played against low blocks, more defensive sides recently, could coming up against a better opposition doing better, and he has a good record against City.
He does have a very good record against City.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, no, he's scored a lot of goals against them. He is going to be coming up against Kyle Walker, who is in really good form at the moment. Looking to other games as well, like the Liverpool game. With Gomez out, he's like the main guy. He leads the high line, so they're going to play probably a more withdrawn line. So he's not going to get many chances in behind there, but he is going to be up against far worse players than what we could be playing against. So he's not. I could happily keep him. I really could, but I'm trying to chase a little bit, and I need some other players in there myself. But
You're selling.
I'm going to sell Son. Reluctantly, I am going to sell him.
Do you know where you're going to?
No, I don't. I've now got the problem of Salah because I've got him, so I'm going to have to sell him. I say have to. I probably will do. But what's the plan for Son was De Bruyne or Sterling. And that's what I'm hoping we're going to talk about in a little while because I'm leaning towards De Bruyne. But Sterling is his ownership is so low, it could be a good way to make some points.
Go on then, Johnny. I won't even ask the question. Off you go, mate.
So I wanted to come, I said this before we started talking, I wanted to come with a load of numbers. But actually something that sort of skewed the stats a little bit is, I think like you've said before, James, is you have to sort of go off games in lockdown now. You have to go off the sort of games since the break. And I think to a lot of people's frustration, Sterling was rested for a lot of the home games. So what I will say, I'll start by saying, I think a lot of this season's data is difficult to interpret because the fixtures have been so difficult. Wolves, I'm looking at them now. Wolves, Leicester, Leeds, Arsenal, West Ham, Sheffield United, Liverpool, on the form of this season, is actually a very difficult start. I think obviously everyone knows the upcoming fixtures we'll have. I'll just pick out a certain few. Burnley at home, Fulham at home, West Brom at home, and Newcastle at home.
That's enough. You're killing people, mate.
So you have to think, you have to go off, right, well, what's the form been at home against the lesser teams? Because that is what you're looking at. And I think a lot of people are going to bring one of them in to captain. I think that's fair to say. Most people will be looking to captain one of them in a fair few weeks. And I say the data is difficult to interpret because to many people's frustration, and I've got Sterling's minutes up here in front of me again. So last season, in lockdown, the home game to Newcastle, he only came on for 30 minutes at the end. The home game to Bournemouth, that was the game that frustrated me and a lot of other people. He only came on at half-time. I think there was one more. The Burnley game, right at the start of lockdown at home to Burnley, he didn't play. He played at home to Norwich on the last day of the season and got a goal, but was sort of outshone by De Bruyne.
Yeah, we know. We all captain Sterling, mate.
Yeah. Whereas I look at De Bruyne's minutes, and let me just try and get them up again. To be fair, he was on the bench for a Burnley game as well. He played the 90 against Newcastle and then played the 90 against Norwich. So it's difficult to interpret, really, because Sterling didn't really have the chance to show himself in them games. But I'm going to contradict myself, and I'm going to say I do fancy Sterling over De Bruyne for these fixtures. I think I will put it on the record. I've said it before. I think if you want to captain one of the two, I would be more confident and more comfortable captaining Sterling over De Bruyne.
I get that.
Just because, like you've said on your Q&A this week with Bruno, De Bruyne is a very explosive player, but from outside the box. He doesn't have many shots in the box. A lot of his points come from assists and penalties and sort of wonder goals. And you'll be watching a lot of games getting stressed with De Bruyne if you captained him, knowing that he doesn't really get in the box and he doesn't look like points are imminent, whereas they do for Sterling. And I think when we do play these lesser teams, hopefully we will have more shots in the box. We will be dominating teams more, and hopefully Sterling will be closer to goal. But I think you just got to pick what you're more comfortable with. If you want someone who you're going to captain less and you're not going to be frustrated if he doesn't get a penalty, then go with De Bruyne. If you're going to get frustrated with De Bruyne not looking like he's going to return and maybe getting only 5 points for an assist if he doesn't get a penalty, then I'd say go with Sterling.
If I said to you, Johnny, now, that those 3 home games, Burnley, Fulham, West Brom, and there's another great one afterwards as well. Is it Newcastle? Yeah, Newcastle in game week 15. That's like 4 of your next 7, or it's 4 of the 6 after the Tottenham game anyway.
Yeah.
If I said now in all 4 of those home games that Sterling and De Bruyne would play 90 minutes in all 4 of those home games, who would you pick?
I think I'd pick Sterling. I think I'm going to pick Sterling.
I think this is why I might be leaning Sterling as well, because my instinct on this is, I know what you're saying about the rotation in the home games in lockdown, and it's a good measure to look at that. And it's
sorry, can I just interrupt? My point with that wasn't that I think Sterling might be rotated, because I don't. I think Sterling will play the majority of their minutes. I was just making a point that it's difficult to interpret the data from last season. I think he was rested in those games because we had
more important things.
Just because of the rotation, yeah. And Pep felt that, right, we need to save Sterling for the harder games. Yeah.
Agreed. And I think that's the point, right? Your Champions League group's done, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah.
So I'll put it this way. Your next Champions League game is before the Burnley game. If you win that, you're on 12 points. You're definitely through, and almost certainly won the group as well. Surely then every priority can actually go into the league game. And also it's worth saying that your goal difference at the moment's not great, right?
No.
And you are adrift. And come the end, it might matter. These are the games where you've got the best chance of putting numbers on the board, right? I would look at it now and say, if Sterling or De Bruyne, you said one of them's going to get a hat-trick any week, I'd fancy Sterling. And I just think the upside on that would make me want to lean to Sterling. That's the way I'm beginning to think, because I actually think he will play the majority of these games. The flip to that, and the only thing that really, really interests me, Johnny, is what you want to say about De Bruyne's positioning. Because although you say it could be frustrating, I never get frustrated watching him. And I almost religiously have him. I don't at the moment. And I know what he's probably going to do to my team at the weekend, by the way. I might rectify that by the time Saturday comes around. The only thing that matters to me in terms of De Bruyne versus Sterling is where De Bruyne's going to play. That's the most important thing on the answer, in my opinion. So what do you think is the answer to that? Because we have obviously seen like the Brighton away game last year, which was one that really was frustrating, where De Bruyne basically went and played quarterback. And obviously Sterling was the one that day who went and got a hat-trick. Do you see him being advanced like he was against Liverpool and like we see in some of these bigger games? Or do you see him dropping deeper and becoming almost part of a double pivot?
See him dropping deep. We said at the start of the season, them opening fixtures were good for De Bruyne. Because he'll play Rodri and Gundogan, and he'll play De Bruyne, not necessarily as number 10, but as still in those sort of number 8 positions, but just give him free roam. Whereas you can see him against, I think it was against Sheffield United where he played Bernardo with him. Maybe sort of one of semi-easy fixtures that we've had so far. And Bernardo was the one that was sort of getting forward a bit more. I can see that happening. I'd be really frustrated. He plays them all the time, but I'd be really frustrated if he played Rodri and Gundogan for them home games. So I then think De Bruyne does naturally drop deep. But again, that's not to say he won't get points. Because I tweeted during the Sheffield United game, he got an assist out of absolutely nowhere just by passing it to Walker. All he needs is a penalty, and then he's on a 14-pointer. And that's the thing with De Bruyne. He can haul out of nowhere. Yeah. But it's that sort of... You're playing the sort of lottery with De Bruyne then. You're hoping that the dice lands while you've got your armband on him. And I think, obviously, people will get frustrated. You said you don't, James, but I know a lot of fantasy players will. They will get frustrated with him if they captained him and they've watched him.
There's a lot that are frustrated with Sterling. Now, I've seen people generally going, I don't care about the fixtures. I want to move Raheem Sterling on. I've had enough. Yeah, I'm seeing that as well, which, I mean, personally, that doesn't make any sense to me. What I'd like to do in this situation, genuinely, Johnny, is get both. And make the decision on which one to captain when I get there. And inevitably, I'll get it wrong. But there's every case, James, particularly with the Salah situation at the moment, there's every case for getting both, isn't there?
So what I think I am going to do, I've been thinking about it for a lot of international break, and I can't believe I haven't seen it more. Probably people are probably thinking the same thing. I think what my plan is to bring in neither of them this week. Leave it as it is this week. Part of my thinking there is they'd probably be coming in for Son, and that would be breaking all kinds of superstition. Taking out an FPL player when they're about to play my own team, you know that Son would score if I did that.
Please sell him, mate.
Then, to be fair, I'm keeping both Son and Kane this week. I do fancy Son this week, to be fair, of the two. And then everyone's thinking, right, so City of Burnley at home game week 10. Obvious captain is still De Bruyne. I'm seeing Vardy at home to Fulham. And I'm looking at Vardy's 4 fixtures from 10 to 13 as opposed to Kane's for 10 to 13. And I think that's a more obvious move than Son to someone else. So I think I'm going to go Kane to Vardy for them 4 fixtures. Captain him in game week 10. So by that time, I haven't got any City players yet. I'll have seen City play. I'll have seen City play against Spurs. I'll have seen City play in the Champions League, and I'll have seen City play against Burnley. And you'll actually have. It'll be, for me. Hopefully, it won't be a tough watch because hopefully we'll batter Burnley. But for most people without City assets, it might be a tough watch. But if you can sit through about 90 minutes without a City asset, you might benefit from the eye test of what we're going to be like in the following games against Fulham, West Brom, and Newcastle.
What's your last scores against Burnley? Isn't it like 4-0, 5-0, 5-0, something like that?
Yeah. So it is a tough one to say, but I think that might be my plan.
I get that. At the moment, I haven't got any, which I'm okay with for this weekend. De Bruyne is the one that scares me for this week in terms of space on transition. Scares me, but if I'm going the week after, a little bit like you, I feel like I might be leaning towards Sterling. I just psychologically, for me, can't think that I'm going to go without De Bruyne for 6-7 game weeks in a row. Which way are you leaning, Ricky, between the two now, having heard all that?
I'm leaning Sterling, which, to be fair, what I've heard is kind of reaffirmed where I was. Like you, I've always got De Bruyne. It sounds ridiculous. Even though he's the highest points scorer last season, I still never feel comfortable captaining him. It never feels.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's very weird.
I've tried to do it. It's not worked.
Yeah, it doesn't sit right with me. Whereas Sterling, he can pull out 21, 22 points from absolutely anywhere. So I'm going to go for Sterling. I'm not doing anything this week with them, so I'm keeping Son. I probably should sell him just to guarantee that he'll score. So when he doesn't, it's all my fault. But yeah, I probably will, almost definitely will buckle before the Burnley game. I don't want to miss out on what is potentially going to be a high score. But I'm watch how both teams set up this week. You know what? And if Son actually does do as well as I think he will do, I may not even get rid of him at all. I may just keep him and go Cityless, which would be a bit brave for that run.
Have we got some sort of hoodoo over City?
Yeah, it seems to be. I don't know how.
What is it? Because for us, it's unexplainable.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look traditionally, man for man, over the last few seasons, they're far better side than we are. But they just, other than the Champions League game, which a lot of people forget that they actually won that game. We won the tie, but they won the game at the Etihad. But other than that game, they can't beat us. And last season was ridiculous. I think over the course of the 2 games, you had about 35 shots and managed to get 1 point.
You're underdoing it, Ricky.
Was it even more than that?
We had 5 shots and scored 4 goals. And I think it was 45 you had, Johnny?
Yeah, we talked about it. We've already talked about it on a podcast, haven't we?
He doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
Can I just, you can tell how worked up I'm getting that. The one shot that didn't go in was Kane's from the halfway line.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So all the meaningful shots you had went in.
That's got to change, isn't it? I mean, you've obviously been through so many things over the last couple of years in terms of who you play in opposition. Do you believe in that sort of thing? Like, is it psychological in our minds now? Or is it just a case you turn up? Because I know now that if you play to your maximum on Saturday, you'll beat us. And I don't think Ricky will disagree with that opinion either, to be honest. So is it just a case of turn up, do your thing? Or is there something psychological in it that starts? Are you as a fan, going into the game going, are these lucky bastards going to do us again on Saturday?
A little bit. But I don't think it's opposition specific, like you say, because it happens to us against a lot of opposition. It's just you lot that have had it to the extreme. Like I say, it happens a lot. It happens a lot when you. It happens a lot when you play like we do. You play high, you create a lot of chances, but you leave a high line. You're prone to creating a lot of chances, but then the chances you do concede have a high XG. So it happens to us a lot where we the games we do lose, it looks ridiculous, and I don't really know how we've managed to lose.
I think
yeah, there's a little bit. If anything, there's maybe a little bit to do with the new stadium, because obviously we've been there now and lost twice when we've played. We didn't really play well the first time, but yeah, the second game last season was ludicrous.
Both league games were ridiculous. You didn't play well in the first leg of the Champions League quarter-final. We spoke about that at the time as well, in terms of you didn't feel like you went into it like it was a Champions League quarter-final. But the two league games, I mean, across the two games last year, you should have got 8-9 goals.
Because the first one was obviously second game of the season. We'd already beat West Ham 5-0. At that point, we thought it was no different to the season before, and we were playing brilliantly, thinking, bloody hell, we're going to be this good again. But then the second time was actually quite a pleasant surprise at how well we played. But then as the game went on, you start to get more and more frustrated, and you knew it was coming.
As angry as you were over those two games last season, it is nothing compared to the anger I felt when John Mackin's goal went in, and James will know exactly which game.
Bloody hell, Rick, what are you bringing that up for?
Well, listen, our recent form against City is the football gods just giving us a little bit back for that goal.
I thought John Mackin was off the back of Ricky Villa, I think, mate. Football is a circle and it constantly evolves. Thanks for bringing up literally my worst ever Spurs memory. Thank you very much, Ricky.
The worst time of my life.
Brilliant. I appreciate that. Can we talk about, Johnny, about Ferran Torres? He's obviously had a little bit of attention in the last couple of days. Hat-trick for Spain and a 6-0 win against Germany. I think he scored as well, didn't he? What's your impression on him so far?
Yeah, I like him. He seems to have adapted well. He's been given a tough ask in a new league. He's been asked to play up front, and he's looked really good. And obviously, he's looked good for Spain as well. I wouldn't go as far to say he's nailed. I wouldn't really consider him at the moment for fantasy football. But one thing I would say is he looks clinical. He looks like he's got goals in him. More so than the other forward players that we have, and we know how frustrating Sterling can be in front of goal. Torres looks clinical. He's having a lot of shots in the box when he's played up front for us. And again, you saw if you see the goals, if you get the chance to look at the goals that he scored for Spain last night, they are good finishes.
Yeah, particularly the hat-trick goal was a lovely finish.
Yeah, it was. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him sort of nail down either side. I think he looks a little bit more suited to the right-hand side. I was hoping that we've talked in the past about Sterling was at his best when he was on the right with Sane, a proper winger, on the left. I'm hoping that maybe with Torres on the right and Sterling on the left, he might start to see some of them Sterling tapping goals again. But yeah, he looks good. Like I say, I wouldn't go for him right now, but again, just see how. I think he might start at the weekend, and yeah, just see how he looks.
Where does that leave Mahrez and Foden currently?
Mahrez, I think, is a difficult. Mahrez isn't having a good time this season. He isn't having a good time, but Pep seems to like him. I think there was a game against Sheffield United that was a bit of the final straw. He was left out against Liverpool altogether, and Pep put it down to a niggle, but I didn't believe him. We had 4 defenders on the bench that day, and we were screaming out for another attacker to come off the bench. So I'm not sure if something's happened there. With Foden, again, I've seen a lot of people getting frustrated. I haven't had him this season at all. I agreed with people at the start of the season. I think he was brilliant value at 6. Is it 6.5 mil? He is.
Yeah.
And people saying, right, we'll just settle for whatever minutes he gets. But I think it is starting to lean towards the side of, right, he just isn't getting enough minutes to even justify that value. I think we've talked about in the past how we expect him to be David Silva's replacement, but I think he is now considered one of the forward players. So he has to contend with Sterling, Mahrez, Torres. But no, it's frustrating. I think obviously he gets a lot more leniency, and I think a lot of City players want to see him given a chance just because he's a local lad. And he hasn't done much wrong. So I think when people genuinely ask, why isn't Pep playing Foden? It is a question that the City fans are asking as well, especially recently. Mahrez, you can't justify Mahrez over Foden at the moment. I think I tweeted it before the Sheffield United game. It turned out Foden was ill. But I'd certainly say he's ahead of Mahrez in the pecking order.
So I've got Foden. and I've got, like many people, obviously other issues that I need to deal with this week. Suddenly, I'm then walking into the brilliant fixture turn, and I've got Phil Foden sitting in my squad. At that point, I've got to stick with it, haven't I? I don't see how I could take him out for a player of a similar value as a midfielder, anyway. Because I would look at it and go, if he gets half hour in a Man City game in some of them fixtures, he'll get returns, even if that's what it came to.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we've seen how quickly it can turn with Pep. I mean, all it takes is just like it doesn't even take an injury with Pep. You know, it's like
just to change his mind.
Just a lunatic. Yeah, you could see Foden start in some of them games. I mean, look at the games before lockdown. To be fair, that was before he signed Torres. He did start a lot of them, didn't he? And I think some people even captained him. I brought him in for that Newcastle game. He had very good XG in the home games against the lesser opposition. So you might see something there. But again, it's just impossible to say. It's just impossible to say. Just because of what we said before. These home games against lesser opposition will just bring new data.
I want to ask you, Ricky, about Davinson Sanchez, who's obviously dropped out the team since the West Ham game. It now seems like Mourinho's finally settled on Dyer and Alderweireld. Are you happy with that as the first choice pairing? Or do you think, because of the extra pace we'll be facing from teams in upcoming game weeks, that he might revert back to Sanchez?
No, I don't think he will. Dyer is, for me, his preferred centre-back, and he will play somebody alongside Dyer. I think Davidson he's got a mistake in him. We've seen that a few times now. He can be a bit clumsy, some rash challenges, and we're going to need to defend quite impeccably against some of these sides. We're coming up against some very, very clever forward players, and Toby's not one that is easily outsmarted. He's outpaced constantly, but he's not outsmarted. And I think we're going to need the brains of them two at the back. And that's their positioning is going to be more important than pace, I think, for those games.
And have you got a preference on Ndombele versus Lo Celso? Not an FPL question, obviously. Just have you got a preference in terms of who would play just generally week to week?
I think I like Ndombele. There's nothing wrong with Lo Celso. He's a cracking player, but Ndombele's work rate, his creativity, his strength in the middle of the park really complements Højbjerg. So I would go for him. And he seems to be the favoured one now in Mourinho's eyes. It's Lo Celso. I know he's had some injuries, but I think even when he's fit, we're still going to see Ndombele playing the vast majority of games. Just his strength and his ability to win the ball back is brilliant.
Jonny, how many teams in the title race this year?
Lots.
Don't make us laugh because we'll start laughing.
I think Spurs are in it. I do think Spurs are in it. I think Leicester are in it. Chelsea are in it, as well as obviously City and Liverpool. When you've asked me that question now, I'd say that you need to ask me again in a month's time, because we don't look like the team we have of recent years. I was getting a bit emotional yesterday actually watching some the highlights from the 17-18 season, 18-19 season, and we were such a good team. Look back now and see the team of like Company, Silva, fully firing Aguero. We were something else then. And
Leroy
the team
Sané,
has
dare I say.
Leroy Sané, yeah. Because I was watching the highlights when we beat Liverpool and looking at Sané, and we're just a different team. Liverpool will obviously be weak, and I said they'll be weakened by the mentality of winning a league title. They've obviously lost half the defence now, so I think there's the number of points that it will take to win the league will be somewhere between. I don't think it will even be 90. I think it will be somewhere between 80 and 90, and I think if other teams can get their act together, they can push us.
I still think it would be very high 80s, personally.
Yeah.
Same question, Ricky?
I'm going to give an almost identical answer. At the moment, I'm going to say exactly those teams. We are in a title race at the moment, James. 8 games in. With us, we will know by Christmas if that is a true title challenge or not. These next few games, we've got to see if we can hang with those boys. We're playing virtually every single big team. Some of them away as well, rivals. London derbies. We will see. At the minute, yeah, we're in it. We're there. The results say we are. Whether we
Is
stay
there
there
anyone?
or not.
Well, listen, I think we might get the answer quite emphatically on Saturday night, actually. Is there anyone that Johnny hasn't mentioned you think could make an attempt at the title race? You obviously haven't mentioned the red rivals for either of us.
Well, they're not. Our red rivals are not. They're nowhere near the pace. Their lack of creativity means they're going to struggle an awful lot. I'll let Johnny speak about his red bunch. The only other team, probably Everton. Their fixtures haven't been great, but if Richarlison can stay fit the season, he's so important to them, and they're going to get some results.
What, 3 defeats in a row, Everton?
Yeah, but all 3 of those without Richarlison. I heard a ridiculous stat that they haven't, since he joined, they haven't won a game where he hasn't played.
I think it's 1 game since he joined, I think.
Yeah, it's that important to them.
I wouldn't see them being in a title race. I mean, personally, I still think it would be City or Liverpool. The only other team I think that to come through, if Chelsea can get things right tactically and keep players fit, they've got a phenomenal team on paper and are probably the most comfortable in terms of actually changing between 2 different systems, whether it be a back 4 or with Chilwell and James as wing backs.
They on paper they've got a great team, but they've also, out of all of the teams at potential challengers, they've got by far the worst manager. He's not very good tactical. Sorry, any Lampard fans out there.
Let's bash the English guy.
Well, I don't care where he's from, mate. He's not very good tactically, and he is, out of all of those, he's by far the weakest manager, and he's being found out, I think, a little bit.
Johnny, you've got better experience than me and Ricky. You only remember black and white TV. Is it possible to win a Premier League title with a bad manager?
Yeah, I think so.
It's a double-edged question there, a little bit. Asking if maybe if were the 2 that you had previously won it before Guardiola, would you look back now and describe Mancini and Pellegrini as top managers, having now experienced Guardiola?
Mancini was a top manager. Pellegrini was good at his first season, but I really didn't like him by the end, and sort of look back and think, how the fuck did we manage to win the league?
So there you go. It's possible, Ricky.
A lot of City fans.
I'm going to go and put some money on Chelsea now then.
Sorry, John, go on.
A lot of City fans think that sort of Liverpool gifted us that title in the end. We got to 86 points, but yeah, I'm hoping that just to be a bit of optimism on City. We've got a real good run of fixtures now. We've had a tough start, providing we win our game in hand. We're 3 points behind. The defence looks stable again. We're getting Aguero and Jesus back. Torres looks decent. We need to put a good run together now. Like you say, get Champions League boxed off. We're not playing in the Carabao Cup for a while. We just need a good run in the league. And I think it might come in the next 10 games. And I'm just hoping. We haven't had a winning streak anywhere near the ones that we saw from the 2 seasons. Obviously, but we won it. And we need to put something like that together now. Even if it's like at least a 6 or 7 game winning streak. I can't remember the last time we won 3 games in a row, for 3 meaningful league games in a row. And we need to start doing that. And if we can do that, we could take it away. Like I say, if Liverpool were to start to falter, we could take it away from teams. And then actually we could be looking in the new year and just be saying, right, City, you're going to see the title race out.
In the next 9, up till January the 2nd, which is basically the end of the Christmas period, if you will. Between now and then, we've obviously mentioned 4 home games. There's also Brighton at home is the last. So that's the next 5 home games. Burnley, Fulham, West Brom, Newcastle, Brighton. You couldn't ask for much better on paper, really. The 4 away games are Tottenham, Manchester United, Southampton and Everton. And I think they might decide where Manchester City finishes this season, because Manchester City are very capable of winning all 4 of those games. But at the moment are capable of struggling in all of those games as well, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I actually think, Johnny, that you're about to go on a tear up, personally.
I hope so. Really hope so.
Let's finish with predictions then, guys. Ricky, Correct score prediction for Saturday.
2-2.
You've brought some cojones to the table today. I'm pleased with you, mate. Johnny?
I think 1-1.
Okay, it would probably be rude for me to not go for a draw, but you know me, I'm a bit of a pessimist. I think we've got way too many issues, both defensively and sitting in midfield at the moment, that if the pattern of the games continues as what we saw last season, I think Manchester City will win comfortably and very comfortably. I think it will probably be 2 or 3 now. Right, this is my podcast. I've now got to follow that and end it.
Yeah.
I'm
speechless.
I obviously hope that I'm wrong, but I think we're still a long way short, Ricky, in terms of trying to get near a title. Somebody asked me the other day, how many of the next 3 would you have to win to believe you're in a title race? My honest answer would be 3. If we win all 3 of the next 3 against City, Chelsea and Arsenal, then yeah, count me in. Let's go on the joyride and we'll get beat by Crystal Palace the week after, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I said that I think we're in a title race. I just will caveat that by saying it's not about necessarily how well we play. It's the other teams around us not picking up the points that
that's true.
So we don't have to be the best team, but we will have to rely on other teams, like the run that City have been on so far, Liverpool's injuries. We're going to have that for us to win the title.
Yeah, I think for someone other than City or Liverpool, it has to be like a Leicester-type season, where just City and Liverpool just falter so much. What was the points winning total that season? Was it 81 or something ridiculous?
Arsenal finished second on 71.
Which is...
the year after, I think Arsenal finished 5th on 76.
The squad that we had that season, you wonder when I say, did we have a bad manager? We had Aguero, De Bruyne, Toure, David Silva, and we couldn't even get to 71 points. Is absolutely criminal.
I don't think it will drop off quite to that extent this season, but look, if it falls into low 80s, then other teams have got a chance. I still think that City and Liverpool have got the potential. You look at that run of fixtures for City, and to be fair, Liverpool's as well is about to really open up for fixtures as well. They've got a great Christmas period where you could see them also put in 7-8 wins in a row on a bounce. I think City and Liverpool are both about to pull away actually in the next month or so. And I think come Christmas, we'll again be thinking, yeah, do you know what? It's between the 2 of them. If my team's third, I'll be very happy if I get to that point, and that's the case, by the way. Nice one, guys. Really, really enjoyed that. If you want to follow the guys on Twitter, you can follow Ricky at Ricky Saunders 77 on Twitter. You can follow Johnny at FPL Pringle. Next week's Clash of the Correspondents, just because I don't want Suj to be left out, is with Chris Stone at FI_FPL Addict and Adam Hopcroft at AHopcroft13 on Twitter. We'll be previewing West Ham and Aston Villa, which is on the Monday Night Football in game week 10. I'll be streaming tomorrow afternoon, probably at 3 o'clock, so we can get all the team news out of the way. Other than that, thanks very much. Ricky, Johnny, good luck for the weekend. Come on, you Spurs. Cue music, please, man child.